I think the gnarliest race of any year is Red Bull Hardline.
By far the gnarliest stuff I've ever done.
You have to be smart and anything can happen if you have a crash on it.
You just gotta be so tuned in.
Completely different to a World Cup.
This race is different, it's all about getting through it. And I think it's just down to everyone being scared.
Red Bull Hardline is the race so gnarly that even the pros are scared of it. We're here at Hardline Wales 2024 to look at the incredible course and ask the pros just why is this the scariest race in the world. Let's take a walk down the track. So this start hill is new for 2024 and puts the riders into this top section faster than ever before. One of the things that makes Hardline so scary is the demands it places on the bike. If you have a mechanical on this track, it could be game over. All the riders here are using super tough casing tyres to try and make sure they don't get punctures on these bits of slate. Adam Brayton had a puncture in qualifying and it put him at the back of the field. Now, any mistake here could prove really costly as it's super exposed and the riders could just fly off the side of the hill. This new section behind me was going to be included in the race this year, but ultimately the humongous canyon gap was only jumped by 3 riders, Bernard Kerr, Matt Jones and Jim Monroe, who ended up in hospital. Obviously it looks absolutely wild, but what do the riders think of it?
The river gap is a spectacle. It's drawn a lot of attention. Am I gutted that it's not in? No, I think it would have caused mayhem.
It's the same size as our Rampage Canyon Gap, so 70 foot. Everyone saw there was a few miscalculations with some radiuses and things.
The bucky lip and unfinished painted scaffold, it just looked like a very scary thing.
I'm not ever surprised when G and Dan make something like that. Yeah, I didn't really think much of it, and I looked at the gap and thought, well, I'm not going to do that anyways.
Yeah, quite relieved to see it got taken out because it's a race run, so you're going to want to be coming in race pace, and any feature you have to be slowing up and checking to come into shouldn't be on a racetrack. But I've heard they're making some changes to it next year, which I'm stoked to hear, and I'm looking forward to having it in next season.
It did seem a shame, but I know that it'll be in future Hardline, so we will get the opportunity to ride it. It's Hardline at the end of the day and stuff needs testing, so yeah, I'm glad that they've changed it and just going to make it better and safer for next year for all the riders.
So super excited to hit that next year with the crew.
Everyone would have done it fine, but it would have been quite a lot of time spent up there, quite scary, but it has been done successfully and the changes to it look great and I look forward to riding it next year.
This huge drop is 14 metres lip to lip and it injured Jess Blewett's ankle last year. The reason this drop is so scary is not just because it's so big, but the landing isn't that steep and it means a big impact for riders when they touch down.
It's a sick feature and I really enjoy it, but it's just an insane impact.
It's blind, it's such an impact, but it's not over when you land. You have to get the bike under control over 100 metres just trying to get rid of speed, and it's just wild every time and really unpredictable.
The big drop further up and the rock rolls, they're all just, yeah, but you just gotta be so tuned in.
The toughest part for me of the Hardline course is linking everything together, obviously ticking off the features, that's massive and huge, but then you've got to link them one by one, so that's definitely the most difficult.
The bits in between the jumps are really tech. There's you see when riders are creeping through, and even the top 2-3 riders in the world are still creeping through. Us normal bikers in the mid-pack, it's really full on to get even in between just to get to the features.
It's just a base level of intensity, which would be quite a gnarly track, then with very extreme features on top of that.
One of the things that makes Hardline scary for the riders is having to compromise your bike setup. For big gnarly features you want stiff suspension, but stiff suspension means less grip in the technical sections when you most need it. Let's see what the riders have to say about it.
We put on a slightly harder tune on the shock just for those big G-outs really. Our World Cup tune is a lot lighter and more supple.
My favourite thing is to have loads of small bump sensitivity and then a really good ramp up.
Pretty much all I've changed for this race is I slow up the rear of the bike a little bit, 550 pound spring, so 2 clicks slower on high speed rebound than normal, just because getting bucked is not something I want to experience.
And then on the fork, I usually run 88 PSI for the World Cups. Now I'm on 92 with extra tokens.
The forks I'm on pretty similar, between 92 and 95 PSI, pretty high. It just feels like so much small bump sensitivity off the bottom. So yeah, really stoked on them.
Well, I've gone up 2 or 3 spring rates in the rear, and then I've gone up like 15 PSI in the fork and a lot of compression as well. It's horrible on the tech stuff. It's like almost unrideable, but there's just so many big features here and heavy landings that I want to make sure I'm safe and I've got the speed to, yeah, hit them and land properly.
Here is one of the most overlooked features on the hardline course. Now, compared to the jumps that come after it, the gaps aren't that big, but make no mistake, this is one of the most technical features on the course. The gaps between the takeoff and landings are actually longer than the part you ride in the middle, which means if something goes wrong, there's not enough time to stop before flying off the other end. And in 2022, we saw George Brannigan do just that and have a huge crash. We're here by the 90-footers, 2 nearly 100-foot jumps that require maximum speed and commitment to hit safely. Riders land the on-off and have to speed tuck or pedal hard before pulling as hard as they can to get over these 2 huge jumps. 3-time hardline winner Bernard Kerr had a massive crash in 2022 on this very jump. Any side wind on this jump can blow riders off course and could end in a huge accident. Red Bull have added 2 windsocks this year to give riders advance warning of any big gusts. High tyre pressures not only roll faster, but they keep the bike stable on the big G-outs of the takeoffs and landings of these massive jumps. But higher tyre pressures mean less traction, so riders are compromising between fast rolling and grip on this difficult course. This section before the road gap doesn't film well, but believe me, they are the steepest, jankiest, greasiest rocks you could possibly imagine. Precision is the name of the game here, as riders thread their way through, trying not to dab, or in the worst case, crashing entirely. Soft compound tyres with aggressive tread will help, but to be honest, there's no tyre in the world that will grip these rocks when they get wet and muddy. I'm standing here on top of the road gap, and believe me, it's scary just standing on it, let alone trying to ride off it.
I think you dropped something, mate.
Cheers. As soon as riders have cleared the gap, they're faced with this steep, slippery chute into a 90-degree corner. Overjumping is not an option, as riders need all the stopping distance they can get to slow down for this corner. After the road gap, it's into the Greasy Woods. This section is really fast, and with big elevation changes and G-outs, it's an easy place to come unstuck. Many riders here at Hardline have custom frames, like 3-time winner Bernard Kerr and Hardline Tasmania winner Ronan Dunn. This allows them to have custom geometry to suit their riding style, and it's adjustable so they can tune it to the track and the conditions and their preferences as they change. Even riders running manufacturers' standard frames have found ways to modify them to suit the demands of the event. With reach and angle adjust headset cups, riders are able to tailor their bikes to suit the speed of this fast track. These final jumps are massive, and riders are exhausted by the time they get here, the finish field. In conclusion then, riders have to be pinpoint accurate whenever the bike is on the ground. The huge jumps, steep terrain and high speeds, as well as the minimal setup time between each feature, mean that this is the hardest race in the world. So that's the track, but who thought up this wild idea and then built this incredible course? It's been a decade of hardline, and we're here with Dan Atherton, the architect of the track and older brother of G and Rach. Dan, how has the hardline course changed since you first started, and where is it going to go in the future?
Hardline 10 years ago was so different, you know. We were probably riding this mountain in 2003, 2004. We'd built a track illegally on the hill. And then for Red Bull to come in and get involved and say, think of an event, any event. And we just came up with a raw concept of a timed run, top to bottom, on the hardest track imaginable. Originally, we had 6 weeks to build the course, so massive pressure. Hardline is about progression, and not just the progression from the riders, but from the builders as well. you know, the riders just keep you so like busy every year pushing. You're building something and you're thinking, is this going to work? Like, are the riders going to be able to do it? And then they come and they ride it like it's nothing, and you think, oh, like, we got to go again, you know?
So the new feature that we saw this year was the Canyon Gap.
Yeah, so a lot of hype around the Canyon Gap this year. It's something that we've been looking at for probably 3 or 4 years now. You know, with Red Bull, things need to be planned properly, and they needed a bit more time to kind of get it ready for the riders. So everyone made the decision to pull it and to use the massive step down that's there. And in my opinion, honestly, like, this is the best course we've ever had, like top to bottom. So it's not a bad thing for this year. It's not the end of the Canyon Gap. You know, we've learned a lot about how that radius is going to work, how the netting is going to work, and so much feedback from the riders. So next year it should be an easier project.
Oh, fantastic. So watch this space for more Canyon Gap. Tasmania, that's the first time Hardline's been abroad and away from Dovey. A very different project. It seemed to be really successful from the looks of it. Are we going to see more Hardlines abroad?
Honestly, the event was amazing. Like, for an event that was so far away from Wales and so different, like, it came together so well, and it gave Red Bull like a good appetite for moving the whole project on and kind of expanding things. And yeah, they're keen, but like, it's a big beast.
Hardline is invite only and showcases the best riders from across the world of downhill and freeride. Most big downhill races are different, requiring riders to collect points by competing in local and national races before progressing. World Cups, for example, require riders to collect 20 UCI points by competing in national and continental races before they can even enter. And this is a serious challenge, especially if you come from a nation of fast racers. Hardline is different though, as free riders without race licenses are mixed into the race entry list alongside top elite racers. This may seem strange given that it's the hardest race in the world, but there are no entry requirements. You just have to impress the race organisers at Red Bull enough to let you compete. And this means that you could be racing Hardline in the future. So get practicing and work out how to prove that you deserve a place on the start hill. And if you want to take a deep dive into all the bikes that we're racing this weekend, make sure you click the link here.